Okay, welcome everybody to the Planning Committee. We'll get started with the agenda. So have we any substitutes nominated for this meeting?
None, Chair.
No. Okay, thank you. Can I remind members of the need to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or other interests they might have in relation to items included on this agenda? If not declaring now, we can declare when it comes up. Okay, thank you. It is not recommended that the public be excluded from the meeting for the consideration of the items of business on the agenda. Minutes of the meeting of Planning Committee 1 held on the 20th of October. Do we have approval of the minutes?
Happy to propose it. Yeah.
Proposed and seconded. Okay, thank you very much. Withdrawn applications. Do we have any for this meeting?
No, Chair.
No. Sorry?
No, Chair, sorry.
No? Okay, thank you. Okay, can we go on to the planning application list? I'll remember how to work my computers. Hang on. So planning application 19-01254, Copley Wood, Copley Lane, Halifax. Can we have the officer's presentation, please?
Okay, Chair, yes, that's me. Just bear with me one moment and hopefully I will get it working. Can you all see that clearly?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you. This is an application for the conversion and extension of an existing former coach house to form a residential unit, and the partial demolition, conversion and extension of existing swimming pool to form a residential unit. So that's 2 new residential units in total. On the list, you will see that we have had 4 letters of representation received, which are listed on page 7 of the report. Since then, we have also received another 9 letters of support, all saying similar things, which are basically, if you wouldn't mind me just reading through it quickly. I have lived here for a number of years and can state that I neither witnessed nor heard of any accident involving cars or pedestrians at the junctions of the drive to Copley Wood or Riverwood Drive onto Copley Lane. Furthermore, I understand and appreciate the fact that the work proposed by Mr. Poole will improve highway safety in these locations. In particular, the visibility to the left exiting the drive from Copley Wood and to the right when exiting Riverwood Drive onto Copley Lane. In addition, a 2-metre wide by 30-metre long footpath between the 2 drives will provide refuge for pedestrians who currently walk in the road. It will also provide refuge for those exiting the bus to Copley who currently have to stand in the road. The net impact of Mr. Poole's proposed work will be improved highway safety to the benefit of everybody using Copley Lane, because it improves the visibility of those entering Copley Lane from both drives. Especially, it will mean that we will no longer enter Copley Lane blind when joining it from Riverwood Drive. And as I say, we have received 9 letters saying the same thing. Thank you. Right, key issues then to consider in this application. In terms of principle of development, it is a green belt location. So we have a proposal that is a mixture of conversion, extension and replacement. So we've had to consider very carefully paragraphs 145 and paragraphs 146 of the NPPF. You will see on page 11 of your report the overall conclusion in consideration of those policies. Basically, in terms of the overall conclusion, against Greenbelt policy, it is considered that both the coach house and swimming pool developments are appropriate development in the Greenbelt. Additional floor space is to be provided, but given the surrounding built form and existing topography, this does not impact on the openness and other functions of the Greenbelt. So therefore, we are saying that it is appropriate development in the Greenbelt. In terms of housing issues, you'll be aware of the lack of a 5-year housing land supply in Calderdale at the moment, but obviously that does not override all other considerations and needs to be weighted alongside other issues in the whole planning balance. Materials, design and layout, we consider these to be appropriate. Residential amenity, there is no privacy or amenity impacts given distances to neighbouring properties. Highways considerations, paragraph 109 of the MPPF gives careful considerations for highways, and if I could just refer to that, it is in your report. It is on page 13. Paragraph 109 of the MPPF states that development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. We've been in consultation with your highways officers on this, and although they acknowledge some benefit to the scheme, the impact of additional car movements associated with the new residencies would lead to a severe impact. Wildlife conservation, the countryside officer is happy, obviously providing we apply some conditions. The tree officer is content that there's no amenity trees will be lost at all with this proposal. A phase 1 contamination report in relation to ground conditions was provided, but the environmental health officer does not consider the site to be contaminated. You will see again then, going back to the balance of considerations on page 17 of your report, that your officers are concluding that the development is appropriate in relation to National Greenbelt policy, in that it conforms with the relevant paragraphs and criteria in the MPPF. As appropriate, it is recognised that the tilted balance and the presumption in favour of sustainable development comes into play. This has been considered when assessed against the policies of the framework as a whole, and in particular paragraph 109. It is considered, given the severe nature of the highways impacts, then the benefits of an additional 2 dwellings and a small piece of footpath are not outweighed by the severe harm on highway safety. I'll now take you through a series of plans and photographs. This is the site. You'll see the entrance there from Copley Lane going down to Copley Wood, and the next slide is an aerial photograph of that. This then shows you in more detail. At the top you've got the site entrance, and then at the bottom you've got the 2 proposals. Plot 1 is the conversion and extension of the coach house, and plot 2 is the conversion, replacement and demolition of the swimming pool to become a second residential unit. This is just some closer up ones. You'll see, because there has been, this is plot 2, which is the new dwelling where the swimming pool currently is, and the red line here just shows you the current extent of the swimming pool. This is as existing for the existing swimming pool, and this is the proposal for the new dwelling on that plot. This is the existing floor plans for the coach house, and this is the proposal for the conversion and extension to the coach house. Site again shown, obviously the two locations, plot 1 and plot 2. And we've got a series of photographs for you. This is Copley Wood, obviously the house that will remain. And you can see just on the left-hand side, the start of the swimming pool building. There you'll see the swimming pool building and the portion that is directly in front of you with the square windows. That is the portion that is basically to be demolished and rebuilt, with the remainder being converted. More pictures showing the swimming pool again, and you'll see the access road leading up to it. Another one of the swimming pool, just so you can see basically where the timber frame is, that element will be being removed, so you will have that gap between the two properties. Another picture. We've just got a few just going around the whole building now for you to see. That's the back of the swimming pool building. That's showing it from looking southeast again, and again. This is actually the former coach house building, looking southeast onto that structure. Another one looking south, so basically that is what will become the front of the property. Looking southeast, looking northwest, so we're onto the back of the property where there is a proposal for the extension. Again, looking northwest. And this is looking southeast, basically the entrance off Copley Lane. And we are recommending, just to reiterate, we're recommending refusal on this one, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can you take the screen down? Right, thanks. Right, members, any questions for officers at this stage? Councillor Hutchinson, Councillor Curtin.
I'd like to understand from the highways perspective, the letter of representation that we heard at the beginning of this presentation did acknowledge that there could be some improvements to visibility for vehicles exiting in a leftward direction from the site. But my concern is not so much from the leftward direction as on the right-hand side, where there's a blind corner, there's a staggered junction, a development that's taken place on the other side of the road is still giving cause for concern because of flouting of conditions imposed by this committee. So there's a lack of a footway on the opposite side of the road, where 30 or so children and their families walk to and from school most days. The small level of extension of pavement that would be created here won't help them, because it's on the opposite side of the road from the demarcated footway that children use. I'd like to know what the officer feels to the proposal for pedestrians.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, can I respond to that question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, the improvements stated. Yes, the visibility to the left as you exit the road. There will be some widening if you look on the approved plan, so that would increase. But I mean, that's obviously vehicles will be on the other side of the carriageway and travelling uphill. The real concern here is we've got historical speeding problems on this road. It's you probably have seen the speed indication device to inform drivers coming down the hill. So you know, they travel nowhere near the posted speed limit, and we have looked at traffic calming and so on. But there's a bus route there, and there's narrowing, it's very difficult to put something in that would actually have a meaningful impact. And obviously the visibility display, the applicants, which we'll come on to later, no doubt, will say that they can achieve it, but it does rely on passing over third-party land. That's really our concern. The actual display is very substandard. It's on the inside of the benders, as been mentioned. Vehicles have to nose out, which obviously affects the cyclists using the route, as well as other vehicles having to pull out. And obviously, yeah, the pedestrian access through there, it's used as a cut through. I mean, we have said actually in my comments that the indicated pedestrian route would be acceptable, subject to a Grampian type condition requiring that to be in place prior to the development being occupied. And that's because of there's some concerns raised about ownership of having ownership of the land to achieve the full width. But obviously that would be a benefit, any pedestrian route to existing pedestrians, but that doesn't in our view mitigate or address the overall safety concerns with the substandard visibility display to the right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Curtin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, similar question really on the highways issues. And I understand what the highways officer was saying there about the splayed corners and the technicalities regarding the safety of that junction. But how many vehicles have we already got on this site that make their way off the site now? And you know, how many vehicles do we anticipate extra vehicles will use the lane as a result of this dwelling?
Yeah, again,
are you still there?
Yeah,
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? So I'm having a connection problem.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Right.
It's
2 extra vehicles, but I mean, this is if it was a road serving more properties, it would be obviously a smaller proportionate impact. But even I did count the vehicles when I walked down there. It's only 2 or 3 vehicle, 2 or 3 dwellings, I think. Perhaps the planning officer can check, but it's very lightly trafficked at present. So you know, 2 extra vehicles, and especially the quite substantial properties, in my view, it would be a large proportionate increase, especially given the pedestrian use. So it would be an intensification.
Just as another question. Just another supplementary question, if I may, then. Has there been any recorded accidents on this bend here that we know of as a result of vehicles egressing out from this site or going into it?
No, not in the last 5 years, with records we have, there's no recorded personal injury accidents at the junction. No.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bellinger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Curtin's more or less asked the question that I was going to ask regarding current vehicular movement, and if the family that are currently there at the moment happen to extend and got more cars into that family, it'd just be the same scenario as having an extra property with less people.
Okay. Any further questions for officers? Am I missing anybody? Sorry, I have to keep. Sorry, Capri. Yes.
Yeah, Chair, sorry. I just wanted to clarify. Councillor Clark, as you joined the meeting late and Maria had already started her presentation, it's just a reminder to let you know that you won't be able to vote on this application.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. We don't have any councillors or objectors. We have the applicant's agent to speak. Maria?
I've also got a statement from Councillor Barnes, because unfortunately he can't make the meeting today because of a work commitments. So I don't know if you want me to read that out first.
Yeah, can you read it out?
Yeah, certainly. I would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to have my comments read out, but also apologise for not being there in person due to a prior work commitment. I ask for this application to be put in front of the committee as I feel that it deserves a 360-degree view which this committee can provide. The actual project itself is a relatively small one, creating only a minor increase in potential footprint and also a negligible rise in traffic, which is compensated by the proposed changes to the local environment. The applicant has met with the interim development manager to discuss the project to enable them to see the full proposal in situ and any benefits that the development could bring. I will leave the committee to question said individual if deemed either relevant or necessary. The proposed changes appear consistent with the local area and planning considerations, so let us look at the main objection from Highways. Copley Lane has a long history of issues in relation to vehicle use. Various plans are being considered to improve the lane in relation to pedestrian usage. There is no easy nor obvious solution, but one under serious consideration involves the building of a pedestrian bridge stroke footpath with access near Riverwood Drive, which is situated on the same side of Copley Lane as the proposed development, around 10 metres downhill. Speed is limited to 20 miles per hour along the lane, with the only footpath starting opposite the entrance to Copley Wood heading up the hill. From the site down until after the railway bridge, there is no footpath. The main issues are both speeding and foot traffic. Even at 20 miles per hour, the bottom end of Copley Lane is not pedestrian friendly. The proposal in front of you includes two important changes, namely, one, a widening of the entrance. By doing so, there is an increase in the sight lines for vehicles exiting the property. Increasing the number of dwellings by 2 is in itself not going to result in a significant rise in traffic wishing to leave the site. I am unaware of any history of accidents at this junction, and the proposed development does not seem to substantially increase the risk level. Number 2, the proposed footpath on the downhill side. This would serve two purposes. A, increase the visibility for cars leaving the site for vehicles coming from the left, i.e. uphill. B, substantially increase the visibility for cars exiting Riverwood Drive. Riverwood Drive is a small street of around a dozen properties where there is almost no visibility to the right for cars leaving the drive. The proposed footpath would give those drivers a clear line of sight up the hill. A survey was conducted with residents living on Riverwood Drive. 9 out of the 13 properties surveyed responded. Each was supportive of the proposed footpath development, which would both improve sight lines but also provide refuse for pedestrians and also for those waiting for and or exiting the bus. At present, people have to wait in the road. Additionally, in correspondence with residents on Riverwood, no one was aware of any accident at the junctions. Note that 2 residents have lived in their properties for circa 30 years. I have spoken to Councillor Hardy. Councillor Hardy, being the senior of the 3 councillors, he has indicated to me, both verbally and via email, that he is 100% in support of this development. In my opinion, Mr. Paul has shown a commitment to a long-term and sustainable development and also has taken the views of his neighbours into consideration. Therefore, I recommend the Development Committee on the proviso that the remedial work on the drive and footpath is undertaken before the house development is completed.
Okay, thank you. Can I just comment on that? The first item, any proposed footbridge, etc., that might be in planning or might be in some other stage, doesn't count for this. We can only go with what is, not what might happen. But other than that, then that's fine. So do we have an agent on standby waiting to speak? No?
Yes, Ian Crouch is in attendance.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Hello, Chair. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You've got 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair and councillors. I've listened to everything officers have said, and in my view, this comes down to whether the proposal will make it safer for people to use the junction and Old Lane or not. Your highways consultee says it won't because of the possibility of people speeding on Old Lane and the potential for accidents as a result. Our highways consultant says it will. We have ward councillors who say it will, plus letters from 9 residents who agree that it will. What we're proposing is to improve safety by taking out a length of wall and creating a better visibility splay to the left. We're also creating a 30-metre length of footpath along the side of Old Lane so pedestrians can be separated from traffic along this length. There are 5 things to consider. Firstly, what we propose meets manual for streets requirements for a 20-mile-an-hour limit. Secondly, your highways consultee is using the argument that it doesn't account for speeding traffic. We can only design to the speed limit. If all designs took into account people speeding, nothing would ever get planning permission. 3, the applicant and local residents are unaware of any accidents along this section of road. One of the residents has gone so far as saying that he's lived there for 50 years and in all that time he can't recall an accident. 4, officers are suggesting a general BE5 reason for refusal. This isn't clear or precise enough, and because of this, it doesn't meet the requirements of the Town and Country Planning Development Management Order 2015. 5, and this is to pick up Andrew Demock's point, the visibility splay to the right of the access, that area of land is subject to a planning condition in relation to a previous approval, and as it stands, that area of land forms a visibility splay that is controlled by the local authority. So there's no question of not being able to see to the right. So to conclude, the applicant is offering at his own expense to make things safer for vehicles and pedestrians. Ward councillors agree, as do nearby residents, and this should be seen by Calderdale as an opportunity, not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for the agent? Have I missed anybody? No? Okay, thank you. Any comments, proposals? Councillor Curtin, then Councillor Bellinger, then Councillor Baines.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Listening to all the various points that people have put forward and the points that have just been put forward by the agent there, and the fact that there's been no accidents down here, I can't be 100% sure it will make it safer, but the thing is, what I will say, it will not make it any worse. So I think it can only be an improvement, especially with the works that the applicant is proposing to carry out. So I would propose that we approve the application, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bellinger.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, I don't think we have a strong enough case here, to be quite honest, because improvements are going to be made to this entrance, and I think the area itself lends itself to development. So I'm actually happy to second Councillor Curtin's proposal to permit this application.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Chair. I tend to disagree, actually. I feel that there is still a great risk of coming out of there turning right. Regarding the amount of traffic, as far as I understand it, there are 2 houses at the moment, and there will be another 2 will add to this. So that's going to double the possible number of cars using this, which I consider to be a big, increase of 100% is possibly, I would argue that our highways officer has got things right here. I do know this lane quite well. It is quite narrow. As Councillor Hutchinson mentioned at the start of this process, that there are difficulties there and safety concerns regarding the children getting to and from school. So I would like to counter-propose that, move an amendment that we do refuse this on highways issues.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hutchinson.
I thank Councillor Baines' points of view that he's put forward. This road is the road that gives me greatest concern in the ward that I represent in terms of road safety. It's a blind corner coming down a hill, which for cyclists poses a particular threat, and it is a complex junction, as I've said, with issue. And I appreciate that the residents of Riverwood Drive may notice some benefits from their perspective, but from other road users and for pedestrians, I feel that it poses too much risk, and I would second Councillor Baines's proposal.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Sorry, just scooting through the screens.
Me?
Yes, okay. Yeah, go for it.
Chair, just before you go to the vote, can I just seek some clarification from Councillor Curtin on his proposal? So you've proposed permit. Does that include an extra bit about appropriate conditions to be drawn up by officers?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, it does. That the appropriate conditions to be drawn up by officers for the implementation of the road improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Are you fine? Right.
Thank you.
In that case, we would go, unless there's anybody else willing to speak that I haven't seen. Sorry, Councillor Porritt.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure I'm actually going to be able to offer anything really definite in the case of this, but really just to sort of pin down the opposing aspects of the decision that we're being asked to make. We're looking at, I mean, I'm not familiar with the junction, I'm not familiar with the road, and I appreciate that 100% increase in housing along a road sounds dramatic, but when it's two houses, it's not quite as dramatic sounding. And we're looking at a junction that some people are saying is dangerous, some people are saying is not dangerous. Theoretically, improvements could be made, but I have to say that as I don't have any personal expertise in this area, I would have to bow to the technical understanding and the expertise of highways in this case, because that's where our risk is. And I think you've got to look at where your risk lies and potentially listen to those who have the greatest understanding of what that risk entails. But yeah, decision making though.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak? In that case, we'll go to the vote on the amendment to go with officers' recommendations to refuse. All those in favour, can you please show hands? And me. Okay. All those against? Okay. Does that mean it's, sorry, I can't see all the screens at once. Gurpreet, was that a clear vote?
Yeah, so the amendment now becomes a substantive vote, so you need to vote on the substantive motion again.
Right. So on the same motion to go with officers' recommendations, all those in favour? All those against? In that case, that's carried. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Right, going on to the next item. Sorry, my screen's playing up. It's land on Well Lane, Brighouse. Sorry, something keeps turning.
That's me again, Chair. So just bear with me and I'll bring the presentation up. Can you all see that, members?
No.
Oh, hang
nothing's
on.
coming.
Let me, I'm nearly there, members. Apologies for this.
Not the right screen.
I'm just getting it up. Is that better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
Thank you for bearing with me on that. Yes, this is Landon Well Lane Brick House residential development of 10 new detached dwellings. As you will see, there have been 28 letters of objection representation received. A summary of the points are shown on page 20 to 21 of your report, and also detailed in the call-in request made by the ward member, again shown on page 21 and 22 of your report. Turning then to the key issues, principle of development. The site does not lie within an area that restricts development in any way, and the principle of development has already been accepted through planning approvals 14/01/527/OUT and 18/00771/RES. In terms of housing issues, again, you'll be aware of no 5-year housing land supply in Calderdale, but obviously it should still be weighted in the overall planning balance against other issues such as amenity and traffic. Impact on heritage assets, there is the Black Horse Inn, which is listed close by, but given the separation distances, you will see that there is no impact on that heritage asset. Residential amenity, layout, design and materials. The key thing with this proposal, as opposed to the previous approval, is that the increase in the size of the dwellings is proposed, but it's still however considered that the design, scale and massing of the dwellings, as shown on the plan, respects the established character of the area and would not have a detrimental impact on the amenity of nearby residents. Terms of residential amenity, it does meet replacement Calderdale Unitary Development Plan requirements. Highways consideration, there is no objection from highways, subject to conditions. There is, as in the previous applications that were considered, there is a public right of way where a small proportion is affected, but it is very short in length, and the highways officer considered that it would not lead to a substantial loss of enjoyment of the route. Flooding and drainage is satisfactory, subject to conditions. Standing advice in terms of ground conditions. Public health, obviously, I mentioned the need to look at air quality, but felt that it wouldn't have a significant impact on the area, but obviously look for a condition for charging plug-in and other low emission vehicles. Infrastructure and other needs arising from the development. Education, in their response of earlier this year, said that there was insufficient primary and secondary places to accommodate the additional demand what will be created by the development, and is seeking a contribution of 74,299 from the developer, which the developer has agreed to. The recommendation is mindful to permit subject to a legal agreement being completed, and that's a slightly revised wording to what you've got in the committee report. Just to then go through the plans and photographs. This is the site in question. Aerial photograph of that site. This is existing site sections. This is a proposed site footprint. And this is a proposed site layout. And here we have sort of individual elevations and floor plans for all the plots, which I'll just skim through. This is a site elevation view. Now, I don't know whether you'll be able to see this one very clearly, but the next slide might help, because this is the site layout with a site layout house overlay. But obviously this is the proposed layout, and that is the layout as approved. So you will see it is the increase in the footprint of the dwellings. Again, plan showing the site. And here we have some photographs, and I do apologise about the quality of these. This is the proposed access. The access from the existing road looking southeast. Looking north, rear of the houses on Robin Hood Way. Looking southwest, and those are the houses on Meadow Court. Looking southeast. Looking northeast, looking southeast again, and looking southwest. Again, apologies because of the sun on the photographs. This is looking southwest, another one southwest, looking south, another one looking south, looking southwest, and these are the rear gardens of number 5 and 7 Deep Lane. Looking northeast, the rear gardens of number 13 Deep Lane. Looking northwest, a view of the site from the garden of number 11 Deep Lane. Looking northwest, again looking northwest. This is the rear elevations of numbers 9 and 11 Deep Lane. A view of the site from the gardens of number 9 and number 11 Deep Lane. View of the site from the gardens of number 5 Deep Lane, so looking north. And the rear elevations of number 5 and number 7 Deep Lane. And just to reiterate, we are looking that we are mindful to permit subject to a legal agreement being completed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can you just go back? Sorry, can you go back to the screens that show the existing footprint as planned and the proposed footprint as planned? But do the existing one first, because it's easier to see what the changes are there.
Okay, yeah, just bear with me and I'll share my screen. Can you see that?
See the screen up, yeah.
Okay, let me just go through. Excuse me, it'll take me a while just to click through. So that's the approved layout. Is that the one you wanted to see, Chair?
Yeah, and then the proposed layout, which is the one behind. Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, members, questions for planning officers? I can't see anybody's hand up. Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Hi. Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, what if the legal agreement is not reached? What would happen then? Would that be the downfall of this planning permission?
Yes, obviously your recommendation is to mindful to permit subject to the legal agreement being signed. The agents and applicant have indicated that they're happy to enter into that agreement.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Am I missing anybody? No.
Yes, again, please.
Oh, sorry, Stephanie. Yeah.
Thank you. The original permission was given and it was considered fine, which it looked fine. I'm just wondering about massing. Is it over massing now? Because they're very, very crowded. It's very cramped. The turning circle is smaller. So everything's very much more cramped in than it was. It looked rather nice on the other one. I think this would be very overbearing. Why can you get planning permission to build one way and then go further and make it bigger, change it? It's changed completely, really.
Obviously, with any application that comes in, we have to assess it against the national and local policies. This application has been assessed the same as the previous application and does meet the requirements of those policies. As you'll be aware, we have got, in terms of the replacement unitary, Calderdale unitary development plan does have information about distances, etc., and it does meet all those requirements.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to Councillor Blackburrow, is there anybody else who wishes to ask any comments? Okay, thank you. Councillor Blackburrow.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this this particular issue. As you can see, I've already submitted my comments. I'll keep it extremely brief. I'm sure you've got enough on your agenda to get through today. The one thing I would highlight, I've highlighted road safety issues. What I've not taken into account is the car park owned by the pub, actually, which is adjacent to the opening of this particular site as well, adding additional vehicles. So it is a bit of a concern in relation to the traffic issues. We do have speeding traffic coming into the village from that end. Is quite dangerous. I have a number of residents contact me in relation to this. I very much appreciate Councillor Stephanie Clark's comments in relation to overdevelopment, because actually the types of houses these are, and the types of what Calderdale is looking for is affordable housing. These are certainly not affordable housing. These are substantial properties and dwellings. The other elements of concern, deep concern, is actually the school placement issue. How do you fit, especially in these times, in COVID times, how do you fit additional pupils into a school that's already oversubscribed? The other issue really does relate to the actual access entry needs to be adequate. I don't think it's adequate at the moment. So I think additional work is needed there. I think I'll probably leave it as I think I've highlighted some of the main things. I don't think it's affordable. We're already hearing in terms of the local inquiry about the additional 2,000 houses in the area as well. I know that's different from this application, but it's still adding an additional placement and additional pressure to the infrastructure that we can't deal with at the moment. So I would ask members to to consider this carefully. I know it had outlined planning permission, and therefore, in principle, the principle's there, I guess. But I would really ask you to consider a potential refusal of this on the grounds of overdevelopment and traffic issues as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have an agent or the applicant? No?
No, Chair.
Anybody there? No. Okay, thank you. In that case, go over to comments, questions.
Chair,
points of
sorry.
view.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. I'm just checking if any of the other councillors have any questions for Councillor Blackborough.
Sorry, yes. No? One day I'll get this without making mistakes. Okay, in that case, any comments, questions, proposals from members? Thank you, Councillor Curtin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's very, very difficult, is this, because I've listened to all what Councillor Blackborough said, but the previous application has, that was approved. This doesn't alter it that much, in my opinion. As Councillor Clark mentioned, they are crammed in a little bit more, but not massively. And I remember, I don't know whether any other members were here at that time, but I remember doing a site visit up here when this was originally approved. And, this application, in my opinion, will not make the access any worse than was previously approved. So, I'm quite happy. But, I do understand what Councillor Blackborough said, but I'm quite happy to go along with officers' recommendations to permit.
With conditions? With the signing the contract, yes?
With conditions, Chair, yes, and sign the contract, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Anyone else? Comments, proposals, seconders? Councillor Bellinger.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second Councillor Curtin's proposal and go with officers' recommendations to permit.
Right. Any amendments? I can't see any proposals anywhere. In that case, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour of officers' recommendations to permit, sorry. Do that again. Okay, thank you. All those against? So that's 4-2. Okay, so it's following the officer's recommendations to permit with the appropriate conditions. Okay. In that case, we move on to item 3, which is the former Rose Cottage Farm, Green Lane Shelf. And can we have the proposal? Officer's report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just bring the presentation up.
There you are, Paul. Right.
Can I just check that everybody can see the presentation?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, that's fine.
The application is 1901-502 FUL for the demolition of the existing farmhouse and agricultural buildings to facilitate a new dwelling. It's before members due to a request by Councillor Taylor, who I believe is in attendance this afternoon. There were 4 letters of objection, 1 letter of representation, and a petition letter with 24 signatures in support of the development. The petition letter emphasised the proposal would reduce the footprint of the existing buildings by removing some of the semi-derelict agricultural building and the existing semi-derelict dwelling and replacing it with one single building, which would be the dwelling. Summaries of all the comments received are set out on page 34 of the officer's report. The history of the site is set out on page 33 of the officer's report. And in terms of the key issues, the principle of development relates to the impact on the green belt, and that is the central issue in relation to this application. In terms of residential amenity, there were no concerns. The actual proposed dwelling would move slightly to the east of the existing dwelling, which would be further away from the dwellings to the west. The layout, design and materials, the materials would be natural stone and slate and would be acceptable. The layout of the proposal and the design also acceptable. In terms of highway considerations, the original access road was moved following comments which relate also to ground conditions by British Coal. British Coal originally objected to the proposal due to the presence of a mine shaft. However, following the relocation of the proposed access road, British Coal withdrew their objection, subject to the development proceeding in accordance with any approved plans. Flooding and drainage would be addressed through standard conditions. And in terms of the next slide,
Slides aren't moving.
no, apologies about this. I'll try and
Relaunch. Yeah.
Is that view still acceptable to members?
I think it's okay.
Yes, looks fine to me.
I'll just try it again. It may have been because it was right at the very end. Ah, that's better.
Right.
So that's the site there outlined in red. The fields up to the north leading up to Green Acres Grove. There are fields, open fields to the east. Greenhall Park is to the south and Villa Gardens is to the west. Another view, this time an aerial view. The proposal includes the removal of these structures that are around the existing semi-derelict farmhouse. This is the proposed site plan with the access road here. Proposed dwelling is here. And the dashed lines here represent the semi-derelict agricultural buildings. The existing farmhouse is located here. To the north, there are two agricultural buildings that were subject of recent planning commissions. This shows the proposed internal layout over 2 floors. Shows the proposed elevations. This is a site section looking from west to east through the site. Shows that the overall site falls gently down to Green Lane. Just some photos now of the derelict farmhouse in the foreground with the agricultural, some of the agricultural buildings in the background. Again, another view of the existing structures. This is looking back down towards Green Lane with the properties at Villa Gardens on the right-hand side, some of the buildings in the foreground, and then the farmhouse in the background. That's the view of the existing farmhouse from Green Lane. Again, another view with the surrounding buildings. That's the site boundary with the recently developed dwellings at Villa Gardens. Again, looking west across the site. Further views west across the site. That's some buildings towards the rear of the cottage. Again, that's another view of those. Further views south across the site. That's the view north from Green Lane. And a further view north from Green Lane. And so, in summary, the principle of development relates to the impact on the green belt, and that is the central issue in terms of the reason for refusal.
Okay, thank you. And the screen back. Okay, thank you. Questions for officers? Councillor Porritt, then Councillor Baines, then Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points of clarification, really. I appreciate that there's obviously an existing dwelling there, and the proposed one is significantly larger in terms of footprint and volume. Are we only to take into account that building, the original dwelling, in comparison with the new dwelling, or is there the potential to take into account the existing outbuildings in terms of the total built-on area in on the site? And also, you mentioned some agricultural buildings to the rear of the site. So are they proposed buildings with existing planning permission, the ones right at the very back?
Through Chair, yes. In terms of the National Planning Policy Framework, the central paragraph is paragraph 145, and that relates to buildings in the same use or a brownfield site. So there's two options really in terms of redeveloping in the green belt. However, in terms of agricultural buildings, these are classed as greenfield in the NPPF, and therefore, in this occasion, it's been considered that the increase is assessed against the existing semi-derelict farmhouse rather than all the buildings combined. If there were industrial buildings, then that would be different, but in terms of this site, it's considered that as they are agricultural buildings, then the assessment is taken against the existing dwelling, which represents brownfield land as opposed to the agricultural buildings. In terms of the permissions, those were two more traditional, modern agricultural buildings that were permitted in relation to the farming activity.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
Yeah, I was going to raise a similar point actually. It's just that, you know, the two new buildings which got permission last year, I think it was July, was it last year? July or August. They were, I considered that they were just replacements for the ones which were becoming derelict. And so, you know, I do feel that they should revert back to Greenbelt, the sites which have been, you know, semi-derelict now. And I just wonder if, Mr. Copeland agrees with that assessment, but I think he has done already, but thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to make a comment?
I can just come back on that and just confirm in relation to Councillor Bain's question about how we've assessed those additional buildings, if you like, as being greenfield and being agricultural buildings.
Okay. Is that fine? Sorry, Paul.
Yes, yeah.
Lost you for a minute. Councillor Hutchinson.
And my questions were similar to those of Councillor Porritt, so I think they've been answered. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Baines.
Sorry, I've just realised that Mr. Crossley has joined. I do know Mr. Crossley as a resident in North Arundel Ward, but I have not discussed this planning issue with him. I'll just declare that interest.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for officers? No. In that case, we have Councillors Taylor and Caffrey. Are they both present?
Chair, there is an objector.
Sorry. Oh, I missed that. Sorry, Mr. Crossley. Okay. So, Mr. Crossley, is he on the screen? Somewhere? Oh, there you are.
I can hear you. I don't know whether you can hear me.
I can hear you, yes. You've got 5 minutes. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were 2 issues raised in the public comments for this application. Firstly, that this proposal constitutes inappropriate development in the green belt, which, as defined in NPPF, is harmful to the green belt. This has been dealt with in some detail in the officer's report and subsequent recommendation to refuse on those grounds. And I wholeheartedly agree with and support that recommendation to refuse. Secondly, there is the issue raised by a couple of residents and also Councillor Taylor of the desire to tidy up the area because it has become a bit of an eyesore. I don't disagree with that sentiment. However, as I'll come to in a moment, it is not necessary to build a new and very large house in a prominent position in the green belt in order to achieve a tidying up of the area. The applicants already have permission to renovate the existing 4-bed cottage with the addition of an extension to improve its amenity value. The applicants have 2 further 2019 permissions to build agricultural barns, which we've just discussed. And the stated objective of both of those 2019 permissions is the demolition of the derelict buildings and yards mentioned in this application. And this was in order to create storage in support of their farming business. In other words, those derelict buildings were coming down to support the farming business and they were being replaced by the barns. Maintenance of farm buildings is a normal activity in the running of a farm. If those buildings become derelict or no longer suitable, they should be dealt with as part of the day-to-day management of the business. It's not necessary to build a new house in order to justify removal of old buildings and yards. In summary then, we've seen that this proposal constitutes inappropriate development in the greenbelt, which by definition is harmful to the greenbelt and is contrary to RCUDP policy GN1 and NPPF para 145. We've also seen that if the application is refused, demolition of the derelict buildings can still proceed under existing planning permissions with a subsequent tidying up of the area, which will then address the concerns of both residents and Councillor Taylor. Mr. Chairman, I therefore ask that the committee refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions to the objector? No, I can't see any hands going up. Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to, we have 2 councillors. Sorry, my screen's gone blank. So we have sorry, it's Councillors Taylor and Caffrey. Have you agreed on who goes first, or we do it alphabetically? Okay, we'll do it alphabetically. So Councillor Caffrey first.
Can I
Sorry.
just comment? I haven't been on planning for a long time. If you can hear an echo, I've got this up on my PC in the same room because this new laptop sometimes drops out its connection.
I think we all have this problem. Yeah.
I thought the objectors went first and then the applicants followed in.
No, objectors go first, then the councillors, and then the applicant.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll go in alphabetical order. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, Councillor Caffrey, you have 2.5 minutes. Are you coming on? You have to turn the volume on, the speaker on.
Sorry, got you. My apologies.
It's okay.
I think the officer's report actually is pretty clear cut about the reasons for refusal. I won't repeat much of Crosby's already said, but he's made my, what I'm going to say, redundant, you'll be pleased to hear. The refurbishment of the farmhouse is already been approved under a previous application. And I mean, I think we're all pretty supportive of that because it is a mess and I don't think there's any objections to that. But I think what's proposed here is sort of inappropriate in the green belt. And I can't see any exceptional circumstances. The applicant hasn't provided any and the officers haven't provided any. So I don't know how it could be kind of approved without these required exceptional circumstances. If this was a derelict building, it's a derelict building in the greenbelt. I don't have a problem with actually refurbing something like that. But this is a new build in my view because it's actually been moved quite away from where it is. It's also larger than the existing one and quite significantly larger. So it's another location, it's larger, and it's also more visible in the greenbelt. So there's kind of three things there that are concerning for the residents. I mean, greenbelt guidelines are there for a reason, and I'm be disappointed if we made an exception in this case because it opens the floodgates for other applications. There's a bit of confusion of the agricultural buildings, and I thought they'd been replaced
1 minute
by
remaining.
Another building already. But as far as I can see, the footprint is larger than the original footprint. That's about it from me, Chair, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Taylor, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah. Have members been up to see it? It's an absolute site.
Sorry, Councillor Taylor. Yes, some of the members of the committee have been to see it because we did the application last year. So I know the site quite well.
I've been up on sites and met the applicant, and the building, if you think you can do that bomb site up, it's going to cost 3 times the amount. He's also going to move it further away from is it Villa Gardens, I think, which those are massive. And they're right on the doorstep. Oh, hang on, I've lost you. Well, you can still hear me, can you?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yes, it would be larger than the current dilapidated farmhouse, but to compensate, the intention is to demolish those old agricultural outbuildings, which actual fact, I must disagree with Councillor Caffrey, who said the footprint would be much larger. Well, actually, if you take all the footprint at the moment, the proposal will reduce the whole overall size by 2,000 cubic meters. It's a working farm, and the proposal is to have office accommodation inside the new builds. Also, Green Lane has had a lot of new build over the years. This isn't exactly a new estate like Villa Gardens and the one further up. I appreciate para 145 of the NPPF states in a building for agricultural and forestry. It's still going to be a working farm, not a hobby farm. The replacement of a building provided a new
1 minute remaining.
Sorry?
1 minute remaining.
Yes, I'm nearly there now. Thank you. I think I've had to switch on to no. Anyway, yes, it would be larger, but the overall footprint would be smaller. It would look a lot better. But I'll tell you that the 24 representations are the ones he got before lockdown, and I'm sure there would have been more. I think I'm about there. I would ask committee in this case, because of the improvement it's going to do, it's going to have a farmhouse, working office. It's moving it further to the east, and new entrance as well, a safer entrance. And I'll leave it there, because I think I've just had a try scored against me. Why is that gone off?
Okay, thank you. Members, have we got any questions for either of the councillors? I'm not seeing any. No. Okay, thank you very much, councillors. And, oh, sorry, Councillor Bellinger. I didn't see you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know how you can't miss me.
Wrong screen.
Councillor Taylor, you say that this is going to be an office for the farm, not a residential build. Just want to clarify that.
That's better. Both. But like I say, if you've been up on a site visit, it's no worse or larger. And why Greenbelt affects this one dilapidated bomb site, and yet we've built all around it, I just don't get it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Right, I haven't missed anyone, have I? Okay, in that case, the agent, Mr. Charles Shaw, to speak. Hello, Mr. Shaw.
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. The Taylor family are a bona fide farmers operating a viable agricultural enterprise. They're not weekend hobby farmers. The site has been an eyesore in the green belt for well over 50 years now. The existing farmhouse is dilapidated, and the green belt policy allows the replacement of dilapidated buildings as being acceptable development. The proposed farmhouse is larger than the existing, and to compensate for all this, the existing farm buildings will be demolished and cleared from the site. The farmhouse will also include an office from which the business will run. The proposed new farmhouse is not any larger than similar new properties already existing within Green Lane. The existing farmhouse and agricultural buildings have a total volume of 3,073 cubic metres. The new farmhouse would have a total volume of 1,102 cubic metres. This means that the total volume of building structures in the green belt would be reduced by 1,971 cubic metres, which would make a substantial positive contribution to the increase of the openness of the green belt. The new farmhouse would have a new access drive, which will be fully compliant with current Highway Department rules for visibility displays for exit and entry into Green Lane. The new farmhouse buildings, from a green belt policy point of view, are not considered to adversely affect the openness of the green belt, but are considered to be essential to the operating of a viable agricultural business, providing a substantial food chain to local businesses, which include restaurants and the local butcher, who in turn is supplying local schools, those being North Aureham, Queensbury and Salterhead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for the agent? No, I can't see any. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess we go over to comments, proposals, recommendations. Councillor Bellinger.
Yes, thank you, Chair. An interesting one, this, because I've always been one for protecting Greenbelt, but having listened to this and really looked into it, it's, to be quite honest, it's getting rid of some of the buildings to increase the size of another one. So you're not exactly losing some of the Greenbelt here. And it'll also help this family with their help run their sustainable business by improving what they've got there as a working farm. So usually I would refuse anything that's built in Greenbelt, but on this particular occasion, I'm going to change the way I actually decide. And I'm actually happy to propose that we go against officers' recommendations for refusal and actually allow permission for this to be built on this particular case.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Porritt and then Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair. I think the temptation when you've got a site that's in this kind of condition is to jump at the opportunity to improve it in any way that's possible, so that when a proposal comes along to build a shiny new house, the temptation is to say, well, that looks better, at least it's better than it was. But I am concerned at the scale, and if you look at the footprint of the property, if you turn it through 90 degrees, it's twice as big as the footprint of the current dwelling. And there is permission in place for the existing dwelling to be refurbished and extended. And I'm just concerned that because of the current condition of the site, that we're almost being asked to clean it up rather than to really sort of take hard-nosed planning decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, somebody else. It was Councillor Hutchinson, then Councillor Baines. Yeah.
It seems to me that there's been some double counting here of the existing agricultural buildings, that planning permission was granted for replacement of them by modern agricultural buildings on the condition that the existing ones were removed, but now they're being put up against the building of an enlarged new dwelling. So it doesn't seem to me that the two cannot be regarded in isolation. So I do feel that this is that taken in together, that this is a significant intrusion into the green belt.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments, questions? Right, sorry, Councillor Baines. Sorry, I forgot.
Thank you, Steve. I tried to forget you as well. Yeah, I agree with the comments made by Councillors Porritt and Hutchinson. I think the officers have got the right recommendation here, and I would move that we accept officers' recommendations.
Right.
I'll second.
Councillor Hutchinson, sorry.
I'm happy to second that.
Right. We have an original proposal from Councillor Bellinger. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Bellinger's proposal? No, can't see one. Okay, in that case that falls. So the proposal is to go with officers' recommendations. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? Okay, in that case that's carried to go with officers' recommendations. Thank you very much, everybody. The next application is New Farm. Sorry? Is New Farm 20-00241. Can we have the officers' papers, please?
Can I just check with Maria that I'm sharing my screen for the presentation, but you're talking through it?
Yes, please, if that's all right,
Right.
Paul. I'm just having a few problems with this presentation, Chair.
Right, I'll share my screen for that application. Just bear
Thank
with me
you.
1 moment, please. Just 1 moment. Get the right one. I'll just get the right presentation. That's the one. Sorry about this, councillors. The computer seems to have hung up. Is anybody else able to press stop screen share at the moment?
Paul, I'll reset the screen sharing, then maybe it'll kick you out to
Thank you.
allow you to do it again.
It's just the toolbar's disappeared, and even when I press escape, it's just not doing anything.
Has that worked?
No. If I leave the meeting and then rejoin, would that help? Perhaps.
Yeah, Paul, sorry, I tried that before and it did work. But I couldn't get the screen up. So maybe if you don't mind, if you
I
wouldn't
might
mind
have
trying that.
to, yes, because I just can't even close the existing page. It's just hung up totally.
Paul,
Right.
if you use your Alt key and your tab button, can you just move the screens
That's
that way?
better. Right, I can see everyone now. I'll try and go back into the correct one. Right, so that's the correct one. Try and share screen again. Can everybody see that screen now?
Yeah, we've got it now, Paul.
Yes, that's
we've
fine.
got
Thank
it.
you.
Sorry about that.
No, thank you ever so much, Paul, for doing that. Right, this is planning application 20/00241, New Farm, Ashhall Lane, Soyland, Sowerby Bridge. It's conversion of part of a barn to a dwelling. You will see that there has been 3 letters of objection plus 1 letter of support received, and they're shown on, summarised on page 45 of the report. Ripperden Parish Council have objected. They see it as being inappropriate development in the green belt. Key issues then are the principle of development. Again, we are back to looking at green belt policy. So in terms of paragraph 134 of the NPPF, we have to be certain that this development does not affect the purposes of the green belt designation. And then we look at paragraph 146D, which allows for the reuse of buildings provided that they are of a permanent and substantial construction. You will see that in terms of the housing issues. There's no 5-year housing land supply, but it shouldn't override other considerations. It has to be part of the balance. In terms of materials, layout and design, it complies with the replacement Calderdale Unitary Development Plan. In terms of page 47 of your report, you will see, and this is probably going back to the principle of development a little bit, and I do apologise. Halfway down the page on 47, the conversion consists mainly of internal changes with only limited external changes, consisting of 2 new windows to the south elevation in the place of the existing larger roller shutter door. There are also 3 openings proposed on the eastern elevation. No extension is proposed. Just going back to the principle and development and this sort of structural integrity of the building, I would reiterate that no structural survey of the building has been submitted, but from the site visit and planning statement, it is clear that the building is capable of conversion without major reconstruction, as it already benefits from blockwork cavity walls and substantial steel roof members. And hopefully you will see that, members, when we go through the photographs of the sites. Going back to residential amenity, the distance from New Farm is over 25 metres, so there is no impact on New Farm. The attached part of the barn not being converted will remain in a non-residential use. Therefore, the Environmental Health Officer has requested that we put on a condition which ties both parts of the barn together to alleviate any potential for noise and odour issues in the future. There's no objection from highways. Flooding and drainage is satisfactory, subject to us applying some conditions. And the recommendation is to permit, subject to conditions, as your officers consider that it is appropriate development in the Greenbelt and accords with paragraph 146 of the MPPFD. Paul, could you just bring up the next slide, please? Thank you. This is the site. It is a Greenbelt location. Next slide, Paul. An aerial view which shows the site in a little bit more detail, and it's obviously its proximity to New Farm, which is at the bottom of the screen. Next slide, Paul. This is the location plan, which shows the application site, and obviously the blue line, which is the other land in the ownership of the applicant. You'll also see it marked on where the proposed sewage treatment plant is going. Next slide, please, Paul. This is the existing building. Next slide. And this is the proposal, as I say, for conversion of part of that building. Next slide, Paul. Thank you. Here we've got an aerial photograph of the site and a plan of the site. Next slide, please, Paul. We then go through a series of photographs that just show that the building has actually been in situ for a fair period of time, because there has been issues raised about how long that building has been there. So this is aerial photograph 2012. Next one, Paul. 2009. Another one, 2006. Another one in 2000. And these again are images from Google Maps. So this is 2020. Next one, please, Paul. This is looking northwest, again using Google Images. And that was, that was 2009. This one is also 2009. Next, thank you, Paul. August 2010. This is looking southeast, Sorry, again, not a very clear photograph. Next one, Paul. And these are the next few slides that show the structural integrity of the building. Next slide, Paul. This is inside. This is looking west, and the proportion that is closest to you members is the proportion to be converted. Next slide, Paul. This is the proposed garden to that new dwelling. And this again shows the part to be converted. Next slide, Paul. Inside the building again to show the structure. These are distant views looking southwest. You will see the site and then you see New Farm in the background. Closer up one again, showing both the proposal site and New Farm. This one is looking northwest and you can just see the building in the background and New Farm again. And this is looking west. The existing outbuilding actually belongs to New Farm and is not part of this proposal. Looking southwest, again highlighting the area of the proposed conversion. Looking north, showing the area to be converted. And looking south, again showing the proposed garden area for the dwelling. Looking south, showing the site. An existing access to the site and also to New Farm. And as I've said, the recommendation, councillors, is permit subject to conditions. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Councillor Sweeney, can you hear us? I think in Councillor Sweeney's absence, I'm not too sure where he is. I think we should move on with this meeting. I'll take over as Deputy Chair until Councillor Sweeney comes back, if that's okay, Gurpreet. Oh, I think he's back.
Sorry, I've not gone anywhere. I'm still waiting for Lynn Connell to come on as the objector.
Hello?
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 Hi.
Can you hear?
Right,
it's
can you hear
Mr.
me now?
Connell. The wife is, she's busy, so
Okay.
I'll be doing the talk, councillor.
Okay,
Chair,
that's fine.
So again,
Sorry.
sorry to stop. Do members have any questions for officers?
I thought we'd ask that. Sorry.
I might have missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, we did ask. Oh, I don't know, because
Did we?
my computer doesn't seem to be working very well. So I wondered why nobody put their hands up.
No, we
Sorry,
haven't.
Paul. Okay, and then Councillor Baines.
Yeah, all I've seen is images of the barn. I've not seen any images of the proposed property itself. Do we actually have any images? Have I missed something? Have I blinked?
No, we actually saw those.
Yeah, there should have been some there,
Yeah, there were.
Councillor.
There were.
Yeah, is there any chance? Is there any chance?
Yeah, there were there.
Do you want me to go back onto screen share and go back to those plans?
If you don't mind, please. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. That's okay, Chair.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Maria, I believe those are the plans.
That's correct, yes. Yes, Chair and Councillor Bellinger, these are the proposed plans. Obviously the elevations and also the floor plan.
Thank you. Yeah, it just, to me, I thought it was just a shed. Sorry.
Okay. Can we put down the screen then? Right. So was it Councillor Baines asked to speak? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just like to ask the officers, is it normal for an agricultural building to be built with an insulated structure? I think you mentioned that at the beginning of your presentation.
Yes, Councillor, it's not uncommon, obviously, to have some insulation in these buildings. I think, you know, it's certainly over past years, sort of agriculture's moved on, and there's these structures are, you know, built very differently to where they were sort of 50 years ago or so.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, for definite, right. So yes, the objector. It's Mr.
Hello there,
Connell
can you
in
hear
this
me,
case.
councillors? Councillors, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Shall I begin? Yes, I'll begin.
Yes, please. You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, all right. My name is Richard Sean Connell. I reside at Wagon Farm, which is the farm closest to the two properties. We live here with my eldest son, and I object to this further development of new barn, which I think is an overdevelopment of green belts. New farm and new barn are our closest neighbours. My wife and I have owned Wagon Farm since 2003, but I personally have lived in Soyland for 57 years. In 2003, the barn at the time was 6 metres from my boundary. At the present, it is 1 metre. What you see on the photos isn't necessarily what is actually there. The farm started off live as green belts years ago, but soon there was a porter cabin and a large portal building, namely the barn. No plan permission was granted for either. Mr. and Mrs. Briggs sold off all their land in October 2006 in small parcels, each of which now has a small building on. We purchased one of these parcels in 2006, so the farm and barn no longer had any land attached to it from 2006. The money said for the sale allowed Mr. and Mrs. Briggs to attend to their building, and they transformed the porter cabin into a bungalow, for which they did not have planning permission for, only permission to re-roof and reclad the porter cabin. Soon after they built the bungalow, they extended the bungalow with another bedroom. I complained at the time to the planning department, but the bungalow they supposedly reclad was not even in the same position as the current bungalow. No planning permission was sought for the installation of any septic tank. Water of these two premises relies on groundwater, well, spring, boreholes. So we both share the resources in this immediate vicinity. The barn, the steel portal building, was extended, I believe, as a garage. Now, this is the bit that you can see that they're wanting to turn into a little house. Again, no permission was granted for this. Prior to the planning application to extend the barn for the 3rd time, which brought it to within 1 metre of my property, the barn has undergone extensive recladding works, i.e. the stone, insulation to the areas that you can see and that permission is being sought for. Again, no permission was ever applied for. With again, the dwelling that I live in at the minute, which we bought in 2003, we've had to reduce our footprint of the development that we did, which seems a bit ironic. So skipping. So in December 2014, the barn was sold to Mr. Anthony Smith, who obtained for planning application, again for the third time, to put the barn 1 metre from my boundary, which he purported to keep cattle in. His application to you, councillors, was that he owned 30 cows and farmed 11.3 hectares, neither of which were true. This was made up just to get your permission, as he had only 7 cows and no land in his name. The building is not currently finished, and the work on this extension that he's purported to be doing at the minute has not finished. So on the third extension of the barn, the building work is still ongoing. It has not finished. So how can you grant plan permission for another reuse of this barn when the only legal planning application has not been finished? At the front of the proposed development, as you can see in the pictures, is a Calderdale in situ. Where is the plan permission for this? Sorry, councillors, it's just reading off notes. I'm just getting a bit lost here. Mr. Smith, prior to this application going in, asked us if we could use the land, which you can see to the back and to the side of the property. And at no point did he say that he was seeking application for a dwelling.
That's time.
Sorry, time's run out.
Okay, councillor. Well, I just think it's a bit on. I think he's manipulating the Permitted Development Act by getting a little footprint into that huge development. That's the size of a factory.
There might be questions that members want to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Any members wanting to ask the objector any questions? No. Am I missing anybody? No. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry. I don't know where that's coming from. Okay, thank you very much. In that case, we have councillors Carter and Holden wish to speak. You can have 2.5 minutes each, and unless you've agreed otherwise, I'll go alphabetically. So it's Councillor Carter first. For 2.5 minutes, please. You there, Geraldine? Oh, there you are. You haven't got your microphone on. Councillor Carter.
I'm objecting, not, and I know that Councillor Holden is in favour. Does that mean our time is still split?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
2.5 minutes, is it possible? Anyway, okay, let's go. You've heard a lot of the stuff that's been said by the objector, and I have to say that this site has always had no history of anything ever being carried out under planning permission, or the buildings have been erected without planning permission. We're currently, my concern at the minute is, am I looking out for this application? Am I looking at the barn as it is now, as it currently is in situ? Or am I looking at the barn as it would be finished under the planning application of 2015, if it ever gets finished? This planning application was in the name of Moor Farm and in the name of Mr. Smith. I understand from this application, though, that the barn is now no longer part of Moor Farm, but still in the name of Mr. Smith. So presumably Moor Farm now has reverted back to Mrs. Briggs, and Mr. Smith doesn't have any dealings with Moor Farm. So I'm really wondering as to what point does the barn now become, are we looking at the barn as it is in its current guise, or the bit with the extension to hold 30 cattle? Not really sure which one we're looking at and how that's going to sit. So I have a real problem with that. I cannot understand why, despite the fact that over the years there's been a lot of objections to things that have gone on this site, that there's never ever actually anything ever been picked up to stop things happening that have happened. However, we are where we are. It is noted from me that on the conditions that the Environmental Health is saying that it has to remain an agricultural building, but without the extension, it's really not feasible to do anything with regards to keeping the animals, which is what it was supposed to be doing in 2015. So I'm not sure what Mr. Smith can do under those circumstances. And on the website, I noticed that the Environmental Health did have other concerns about the water source, which has been identified in the conditions, but it's saying before the house is occupied. I really would like to look at that a bit differently, because that is actually saying that they want to the water supply has to be tested. So I would have expected that to be under development and not when it is actually at the finished article. Materials and design. The materials are not something that would be permitted to have a house in the green belt. There's no way would we be permitting a portal steel framed building to be built in the green belt, the timber cladding as a proper house development for a house in the green belt.
Okay, Councillor Carter. Sorry, it's only 2.5 minutes.
It's impossible to represent the people properly.
Sorry, Councillor Holden.
Thank you, Chair. Not quite sure how you follow that, to be fair. Members, I'd like to offer my support of this application. Given that the application is to convert a part of an existing building, I see no reason as to why this application should not be approved. With the exception of a small number of additional doors and windows, there will be very little difference to the external appearance of the building, which is in keeping with National Policy Planning Framework, paragraph 146. The proposed design plans are in keeping with the current existing building. There is already an adjacent property to the building, and so concerns regarding a decrease in privacy should be dismissed. The privacy of other neighbouring properties are protected by an existing tree line, and the very few objections to this proposal speaks volumes. There is adequate parking on site, and given that the building is currently in use, I see that there will be negligible increase in traffic. Therefore, there should be no significant impact upon highway safety. The conversion of existing buildings within the green belt is supported by National Policy Framework, paragraph 146, part D, which states that the reuse of buildings, provided that they are of permanent and substantial construction, is an acceptable form of development. As you've seen on the photographs, this will comply with that. And as such, I would ask that you are mindful to permit this application with the proposed conditions attached. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have questions for either of the councillors? Councillor Baines?
Yes, to Councillor Carter. In your comments on the information we've been supplying before the meeting, you request that a condition that the property is only used as for agricultural workers' dwellings. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, the barn was in the ownership of New Farm. New Farm as an agricultural holding number, it had an agricultural reference, was supposed to be a farm. Irrespective of the land all being sold off, there was a little bit left, and it still does, to my knowledge, have an agricultural holding number. With the severance of the barn from the farm, it means that we now have a farm that doesn't have any farm accoutrements at all to enable it to be a farm going forward into the future. So I was wanting to get the barn tied to the farm, so that it will have to be an agricultural person's dwelling. But I understand that because Mr. Smith has now bought the barn off the farm, that it's the only tied use can be that the barn has to be, the rest of the barn to his dwelling has to be used for agricultural purposes, which is what the agent had mentioned in her letter of support to the applicant. But but if this permission is granted, it needs to be recognised that there is no agricultural holding at numbers whatsoever attached to this barn, because they were with the farm, and that was when it was originally owned by Mr. and Mrs. Briggs. Mr. Briggs is now deceased, and there is just Mrs. Briggs as the owner. So that was what I was trying to achieve, which was to try and keep the farm in the green belt in the rural area as a working farm, and not to get another dwelling which had no farming, which was not connected with that farm.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for members, for councillors? No, I can't see any. No. Okay, thank you. We have an agent, Marilyn Pritchard. How are you, Marilyn? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Good afternoon, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, a lot of points to be answered there, but I'd like to concentrate on the ones that are current, the ones that refer to the application as it is. The objectors have pointed out, and Councillor Mrs. Carter also, that this farm building has been owned by the applicant now since 2014. It's not part of the farm and hasn't been since that time. It has been used for agriculture and was used in association with rented land, but the 2015 permission is for a calf rearing unit, and that's what the extension is. There's a long, thin extension up the side of the building, which was given approval in 2015, and that's what Mr. Smith is currently building. What he's wanting to do is to continue this as a working farm, but it is separate from New Farm or Moor Farm, as Councillor Mrs. Carter refers to it. But that doesn't mean that it isn't an agricultural enterprise. What he's achieving here is the ability to live on site and keep the farm building in farm use with the calf rearing project. He has had a significant number of cattle in that building. I've been there, I've seen them myself. He has scaled that back now while he does the conversion works. He currently has no permanent occupancy on this land. He currently lodges at New Farm, but that's not a permanent arrangement. And as you might imagine, setting up a calf rearing unit involves being on hand all the time. And the sensible approach, as he sees it, and I totally agree, is to convert a small portion of an existing building, all in line with policy. He lives there, looks after his calves, all in complete accordance with planning policy, and I don't have any difficulties with that. I think the objections have come about as a result of concerns about what's happened in the past, but this application is before you as it stands. Each case on its merits. I don't see any difficulty with it in policy terms. In order to deal with the potential issue of conflict between residential and agricultural uses, we have suggested the non-severance clause, and that means essentially that the unit will only ever be sold as one unit in the future. You can't expect that anyone in the right mind would buy a bit of a barn that's full of cows. Separate to the cows, it sort of doesn't really follow. But we propose the non-severance clause to give confirmation and security to how this will operate in practical terms. But if you've got any questions, please do ask.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for the agent? Councillor Baines.
I didn't quite fully understand as whether are you actually saying that you would accept a condition that this application residential area would only be used in connection with agricultural workers? Are you happy to accept a condition of that?
It's not quite the same thing. The agricultural workers condition is usually utilised where someone creates a new dwelling that requires specific justification. In other words, we need this dwelling in order to be able to operate our farm, employ a farm worker, what have you. But that's for a new dwelling, which is not in accordance with policy unless it is for agricultural workers only. This application is for the conversion of an existing building, which doesn't have that same need for justification, because you can convert an existing building for residential purposes. But the practical conflict is between having a new house in this case, effectively part of a large farm building. And certainly it's unusual, and I grant you that it's raised questions because it's not the normal way of doing things. But that in itself doesn't need to be justified as an agricultural worker.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Right, speak up if I've missed anyone, but I can't see any. Right, thank you. And in that case, go over to questions, members, points of view, proposals. Councillor Baines and Councillor Bellinger.
Yeah. I just wonder if our officers would confirm the difference. You know, I'd be quite happy to, I think, to support this if it was restricted to just agricultural workers dwelling in this, and I can't really see why that can't be included. Could I have the officer's opinion of that, please?
Yes, certainly, Councillor. It would be unreasonable for us to request that when actually the policy paragraph 146D of the NPPF allows any building within the green belt to be converted. So as I say, it doesn't need to be restricted to a certain type of occupation. So it would be unreasonable for us to ask for that, and wouldn't be in accordance with the policy, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, proposals? Councillor Bellinger.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with what I've heard here today. A lot of my questions have actually been answered through Marilyn Brichard. So I'm actually happy to go with the officer's recommendations to permit on this, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? Do we have an alternative? Do we have an amendment?
Chair, I think Councillor Porritt was indicating.
Sorry,
Yeah, happy to second, Chair. Happy to second.
Okay. So do we have any amendments? No. In that case, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour of going with officers' recommendations, please show. So I'm just checking. Right.
So I can't see whether Councillor Clark, are you? I can only see a bit. Are you? You're not right.
Sorry,
okay.
Councillor Clark, are you in favour? Councillor Clark, are you in favour of the proposal?
No.
No, right. Anyway, in that case, all those against? So that's one. Have you got those, Kirsty?
There's just two against, Councillor Baines and Councillor Curtin.
Okay.
Oh, no, Councillor Clark against as well. I've got it at 3-3.
Sorry, Councillor Hutchinson. Councillor Hutchinson.
Is that a vote for against?
That's against, yeah.
Right, so it's 3-3.
Was that for against?
So let's just go through it. I've got 3 who were for the motion, and I've got 4 who were against the motion.
Sorry, don't think so. We're going to have to do this again.
So just to clarify then, the 4 that I had against the motion were Councillor Curtin, Councillor Baines, Councillor Hutchinson and Councillor Clark. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
And the 3 that I had for the motion were Councillor Bellinger, Councillor Porritt and Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah.
My maths are correct, thank you.
Well, in that case, the motion falls, but we still don't have an alternative proposal. Nobody's come up with an alternative. So we need a motion. No, nobody's going to put forward a motion. Can I remind members that this isn't something that you can just sort of decide to sit on your hands about. You have to make a decision. And you can't vote against something unless you're going to propose something else. Sorry, Councillor Clark.
In that case, can I move that we refuse permission?
Yeah, on what grounds? We have to have grounds for refusal.
Okay, inappropriate to Greenbelt.
So comment from planning officer, is that acceptable? And do we have a seconder? Councillor Baines seconds that. Sorry, Maria?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, obviously your officers have considered it to be appropriate, to be in accordance with national policy. So basically members are saying it doesn't accord with that, doesn't accord with a specific part of the NPPF, inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. I think we just need to be a bit more specific in terms of which part of the NPPF we feel it's not appropriate.
I can't help it. I'm afraid someone else will have to.
Sorry, yeah, Chair, just to come in. Obviously, officers cannot give members reasons for refusal, particularly when they're going against officer recommendation. Yeah. Officers can certainly assist if they are given at least a sort of a direction or a something to go along with. But I would echo what Maria has just said. Obviously, the reasons for refusal do have to be clear and precise. Obviously, you are going against officer recommendation here. And obviously you've heard me say this on many occasions that you've got your reasons have got to be backed up by evidence or and or planning.
I don't know if anyone can hear me, but my screen's just frozen.
All right, can members still hear me?
Can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, anybody
right,
there?
Perfect.
We can hear you.
Sorry, my screen froze. I missed that.
Okay, it's just me going through my usual spiel where I'm going to end up talking about in a minute. So obviously it's got to be backed up by planning policy, and or evidence, because the bottom line is if this goes before an inspector, we have to show that the reasons that we gave were reasonable. Otherwise we could end up being awarded costs against us. So I would sort of just remind members of the need to give clear planning reasons for your refusal.
Thank you.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Paragraph 145D of the National Planning Policy Framework states that the replacement of a building, provided the new building is in the same use and not materially larger than the one it replaces. Well, this isn't the same use, and it's a matter of decision, I suppose, as to whether you say it's replacement in that it's a completely different purpose and in large part design. I don't think anyone would dispute the fact that it's the same size, but it is of a completely different purpose.
Yeah.
Can I have officers' comments on that?
It is a conversion. It is not a replacement. It is not a new build. It is a conversion. And obviously the paragraph you refer to, Councillor, is about a new build, about a replacement, and we are considering a conversion here today.
Thank you. So we're still in the position of we've got a proposal to refuse, but we haven't got a grounds for proposal to refuse.
Can we have advice as to where we go from here?
Well, it's up to the people who are proposing refusal to come up with grounds for refusal. If you haven't got any grounds for refusal, you can't refuse.
Chair, if I may come in then on that, at that point, I will withdraw my vote. I will withdraw my support to refuse the application.
Okay, thank you, David. So we'll go back to the voting again.
Sorry, and the reason why I say that is because it's going to be difficult to defend this if it goes to appeal, and the council taxpayer are going to be having to foot the bill here.
Yeah. So I feel the same. So somebody else put their hand up then. I've lost people. Oh, there you are. Sorry, lost his Stephanie. He disappeared. Okay. So we now need to go back and re-vote. So
I was going to say, could I suggest we take the vote again for point of clarification, Chair?
Yeah.
No, we can't retake the vote that's already just happened because it was a lawful vote. No. So what we do need is another proposal, which is seconded. So we do need that to happen again. We've already had a vote which was not voted in. But we do need to go back and go through the motion of having a proposer and a seconder and then voting on it again.
Okay, well, I put forward the proposal that we go with officers' recommendations. Anybody second that?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Right, Councillor Bellinger seconded that. Okay, do we have an amendment? No, we don't. In that case, can we go to the vote? All those in favour of the proposal to go with the officers' recommendations, please show your hands. That's 3, 4. All those against? 1. Okay, thank you. Is that okay, Gurpreet?
Presuming we've got some abstentions in there?
Sorry, yes, of course. Any abstentions? So if you're not voted for or against, we've got 2 abstentions. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So the last item is 4 Gladstone Street, Stainland. Can we have the officer's report, please?
Yeah, it's me, Chair, so just bear with me and I will get the report up.
Chair, if I may, I need to declare that an objector has been contacting me constantly regarding this application via email, letter and other ways. However, Chair, I have chose to ignore these to not influence my decision making today.
Okay, thank you very much. We're waiting for the documents.
Yeah, it's just, sorry, Chair, I'm just struggling to get it up.
Sorry about the delay.
Apologies, members are sorry, I just can't get it to share. Kirsty, can I just ask, am I okay sharing?
Yep, you've got every option to share available to you.
Right. Kirsty, when in all my windows that are coming up, the actual PowerPoint presentation's not coming up. Why would that be? I've got it open.
I'm not sure. What I would do is close down every window that you don't need to be open, and then you're just left with fewer options to choose from.
Yeah, okay.
Marie, can Paul offer any more assistance on this item as with previous ones?
Paul, are you still
I
there?
was just going to try and email it to myself again and create a PDF. So if you keep on trying, I'll try that option as well.
I may have it. Let me...
Hi, Maria. Yes, we can see that.
Can you see that? Sorry about that, members. I do apologise.
Yeah, that's fine. No worries.
Okay, thank you. Right, this application is 20/01099. It's at 4 Gladstone Street, Stainland, Elland, and it's a dormer to the front elevation, which is a retrospective application. We had, at the time of writing of the report, we had 8 letters of support received. There was actually one came in late last night from a Mr. Paul Campbell at 18 Thorn Street, Stainland. He gives his full support to the above application. I live opposite the building in question and do not find its visual appearance in any way unpleasant or obtrusive. I hold no objection to its design and actually commend the applicants on their use of sympathetic building materials, as the dormer blends in well with the existing roof and surrounding buildings. It is clear they have given careful consideration to the matter by choosing the grey coloured materials. My privacy has not been breached by this build, and I am therefore writing in support of this application. I would also like to just clarify that in terms of the call-in from Councillor Greenwood, that she did in fact provide a planning reason, that reason being so that committee members can fully assess the planning balance of harm versus benefit of this development within the conservation area. We've received no comments from the parish council. So basically moving on to the key issues. Principle of development, the proposal does lie within a primary housing area, so the principle of extending a dwelling is acceptable. Materials, layout and design, I would refer you to page 55 of the report, and just bear with me, too many bits of paper. And basically in the middle of that page, the residential area is predominantly made up of natural stone built terraces with natural blue slate roofs. The dormer constructed is of a large box sectional flat roof design, which although finished with grey view PVC cladding to the front and cheeks, dominates the whole terrace. That has no other dormers. There are no dormers to the immediate terraces in this area also. The terrace has an attractive appearance and the retrospective dormer would not retain, enhance or create any natural and built features. And that moves us on then to the key consideration for us here, impact on heritage assets. Members will have seen the site is within a conservation area. You will see the detailed comments provided by your conservation officers and her consideration that the development would fail to preserve or enhance the character of the conservation area. Residential amenity and overlooking, both considered acceptable and complies with the policies of the replacement unitary development plan. Members, your officer's recommendation is to refuse, as we do not feel it is in accordance with policy BE 12, development in conservation areas, policy BE 2, general design criteria, and also section 12 of the MPPF, which is achieving well-designed places, and section 16 of the MPPF, which is conserving and enhancing the historic environment. Moving on then to show you plans and photographs. This is the site in question. As you can see, number 4 Gladstone Road. This is an aerial photograph. You will see surrounding it very similar roof lines, quite sort of symmetrical in appearance. This is the, well, you'll see on this is the before and the after. So the before is on the left-hand side of your screen and the after is on the right-hand side. This is a picture because it is obviously a retrospective. So this is a picture of the dormer that has been built. This is a closer up picture of that. This is again the sort of immediate area, I think, to just illustrate that there aren't any such extensions within the vicinity. And as I said, members, the recommendation is to refuse.
Okay, thank you very much. We have any questions for member officers? Sorry, Councillor Baines. Councillor Baines.
Sorry, I'm just trying to unmute myself. Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to ask the officer, from experience, certainly my experience, when you allow one in an area of this nature in a conservation area, even when it isn't a conservation area, once the precedent has been set, you tend to get a flood of them, which then really does have a drastic effect on the conservation area. And these are not new builds. You know, it's a relatively old terrace. I don't know when it was built, but it was certainly some considerable time ago, I would say, with the structure of it. And would you agree with that surmise that this could well lead to many more being constructed, and where there's none now, within a few years there could be plenty more because of a precedent being set?
Councillor, obviously it is every application on its merits in terms of when we consider them. But if you look to obviously approve this application with a reason for approval, that will no doubt be cited in other applications that come forward, and obviously will be a material planning consideration.
Thank you. Any further questions for officers? Sorry, I lost my screen again. No, in that case, we have no objector. We have Councillor Greenwood.
Sorry, can you hear me now? I'm trying to unmute myself there.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Chair, members and officers, for permitting me to present this case today. First of all, I need to say I'm not supporting building without permission. I'm actually representing the applicants and the residents to try and mediate and find a resolution to the situation. This couple have 2 young girls, and in the words of the mother, we are living in a 2-bedroom back-to-back terrace house and we can't afford to move. So the purpose of the build was to give their daughters more study space, in fact, separate bedrooms, and the extension was built to accommodate this need. There is a lot of local support. Family members live on the same street, and I'm told that neighbours also contribute to make this a very close-knit community. Mother tells me that she did not know that planning permission was needed for this, and this has caused her very much distress. She's phoned me many times and she's been in tears about this. Whilst we understand that this is within a conservation area, I think it's relevant to note that it's not a listed building, it's not on the high street where it can be seen by all who pass by, nor is it a building of special interest. Yes, there are rules and regulations, and whilst we do not want to open the floodgates, I would like to appeal to you to consider Calderdale's council statements on conservation areas, particularly on Stainland Conservation Area. It does say, a conservation does not mean no alterations to existing buildings. We live in a changing world, and the places where we live must be able to adapt to demands of present day life. This has been demonstrated by a permitted development of a similar construction within the conservation area in recent years, and possibly leading this couple to think that this is why they didn't need planning permission. I've called this in so that the committee members can fully assess the planning balance of harm versus benefit of this development within the conservation area. But finally, I really do need to ask a question, and I ask this of our planning solicitor, Ms. Sohampal, because it probably does need her professional opinion. As it appears that no Article 4 direction has been applied to this conservation area, would you concur that this development is then a permitted development? Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the councillor? Can't see any. No? Okay, thank you very much.
Excuse me, Chair. Excuse me, Chair.
Sorry.
Do I have a response from our solicitor, Ms. Sohan?
Sorry, it's sorry. No, I'm sorry, but that's not part of you. There to put forward your view about the planning. It's not your case at the moment to ask questions about the legality of it.
Then that's the statement. Then
you've made a statement. Thank you.
Not a question. It's a statement. Thank you.
Well, it might be a statement, but we can't answer that. It's not appropriate. Thank you. So, any questions from members who wish to ask councillors? No? Okay. Thank you. We have the applicant, Emma Taylor, who wishes to speak. You've got 5 minutes. Emma, where are you? Oh, there you are. Hello. So you need to turn your mute off.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you for coming here today. This is a genuine mistake that we thought we had taken all actions necessary to make our home bigger for our growing family. We desperately needed more space for our growing family, so our girls could finally have their own bedroom and privacy, and so we could enjoy life and quality time together. Being a back-to-back with only a small yard, our only option was to construct a dormer to use our roof space. We did apply to Calderdale Council for building regulation approval. However, the officer from the council did not once inform us that we required planning. He told us we was doing everything right. I wanted to raise this with you because we didn't intentionally ignore regulations, and I've come here today to try and resolve this. From our research of understanding, a dormer on a terraced house is allowed to be 40 cubic square metres before planning permission is required. The conservation area was an oversight. On the Calderdale website, it states that a planning enforcement is to resolve problems, not punish a mistake. And when a breach of planning has taken place, the council has to consider if it's in the public's best interest to take action. The council's not required to take any action and can decide that no action is necessary. So the design is simple, using a facing grey material, which the enforcement officer said was not inappropriate. We strongly argue that the design does not cause the harm to the area that the officers have suggested. It's significant that it does not cause any harm, as 12 people, not 8, support it. Although it is in a conservation area, it's in a backland location which is not seen from any other parts of the conservation area. We are just on the edge of a conservation area, and it is only really seen in relation to the red bricked housing estate to the rear, where there are numerous examples of dormers the same as ours. There are already other dormers in the CA which have not undermined the character of the area. For example, 7 and 10 Westgate Stainland. We have used all our funds to do this dormer, and we do not have any more to take it down if you sadly refuse it, or if you decide to take us to court to remove it. More wealthier people are moving into the area, making it harder for us young people and families who have always lived in Stainland to buy homes in the area. This is another reason that we extended the loft, as we just couldn't afford to move. We wanted to keep the girls at the same school with their friends and cousins, keep the girls near family and friends, which is a close-knit community where the girls feel happy and safe, living next door to their grandma and their auntie. This has caused us so much upset to our family's mental health and well-being, with the added stress and pressure on top of the pandemic uncertainties and worries that we all already have. So I'm kindly asking you to please not punish our mistake for something we was doing to better our family and our lives, whilst thinking that we was going through the correct process at the time. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Bellinger.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Emma. Do you still have the correspondence to hand that you've received from the officers in the past whilst trying to gather information and put forward your application?
I have the emails that were sent to us.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I'm just wondering to our legal officer if this puts us in a situation, if there's any contradictory as to if some of our officers are saying one thing and the planning policy is saying something different. Where do we stand at this particular point?
Councillor Bellinger, do you mean in reference to what the applicant said to when she was in contact with building control?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, building control obviously aren't planning. Whilst, you know, we are the council, it's not for building control to advise applicants on their responsibilities under different pieces of legislation. Building control can only deal with what they deal with, and that is the building regulations. They are not there to deal with the Town and Country Planning Act. So it wouldn't be for building control to have advised the applicant on it. They are two separate departments.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Bearing in mind what Gurpreet has just said, wouldn't it be reasonable?
Sorry, have you got questions for the applicant?
No, I do not, Chair.
No. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? No. In that case, step down. Thank you. Right. I assume you've got questions for officers now, Councillor Hutchinson.
That's correct, Chair. Bearing in mind what Gurpreet has just said, it may not be the responsibility of building control to give a definitive opinion, but surely it should be within the remit of building controls to make the applicant aware of where their permission or advice, the limitations of that advice, and tell them that they should be making an application for planning permission.
Again, and you know, Maria probably might be able to sort of add a bit more.
Do you want me to start, Gurpreet?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, obviously, as Gurpreet just says, the building control officers are not experts on planning and planning policy where permitted development applies or where it doesn't. So it would be, the onus is always on the applicant or the applicant's agent to make those inquiries direct with planning officers.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments or proposals? Councillor Bellinger.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit concerned that obviously our building control don't check that there's a planning application first before actually dealing.
Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor, but it's not their job.
No, I know.
They're there to look at building and say whether it's fit as a building.
Yeah.
They never look at whether it's got planning permission or anything else. It's not their job to do.
Silo isn't working.
Stick to planning applications.
Yeah. Sorry, Chair. I will go into what I'm going to say. This has probably got to be one of the hardest planning applications I've had to deal with. I have actually been out. I've actually looked at the dormer. It does actually fit in. It blends in well with the surrounding properties and the roof. You do have to look heavily to see it, but it is quite big, and it is actually in a conservation area, and it has gone against planning policy. Planning policies are there for a reason, to prevent further development. But I fully understand where the applicant is here, and I do feel for them as well. When you've got a growing family in this day and age, it's not easy to move, and especially at this particular time as well. So at this moment in time, I am not going to make a proposal yet until I've actually heard from other fellow members on this, but it is a difficult one, I must admit.
Okay. Further comments? Councillor Curtin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It really is difficult, is this? And you know, I know our planning policy guidelines, but I do feel very, very sorry for the applicant. Especially as Councillor Bellinger said, it's really horrible in this day and age. And so I won't make any further comments at this stage now. But I really do feel for them. It's really, really difficult to move, and house prices that they are, you know, I can understand. But there again, there's no excuse for not getting the planning permission. But we've listened to what Emma said, you know, and it was a genuine mistake, and I think it probably was.
So, Councillor Hutchinson, then Councillor Baines.
I mean, I also have great sympathy with the applicant if they felt that they were doing the right thing, but I disagree that it blends in with the background. Colour-wise it might do, but in form it's entirely different. And it really is, it overlooks a garden area, which forms quite a coherent townscape around it. And I really do share, knowing the disputes that have arisen from dormer windows in conservation areas within my ward, I really do feel it would be used as a precedent for any future developments, which I think would be to the detriment of the conservation area. So
thank you. All right, thank you. Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have a great deal of sympathy for Mrs. Taylor. It is a very difficult position for her. But if this came in front of us as an application, duly, before, when it was still in its original state, which is, a back-to-back cottage, which were, I think, used for if I remember correctly in the notes, for the heritage officer, that they were built purposely for the working population in the area, which is why the size are. And the idea of a conservation area is to preserve these historic buildings. And I worked extremely hard to get a conservation area in North Arham, in the old part of North Arham, to ensure that the buildings were protected from developments of this nature. So I am convinced that once one goes, then it's going to be very difficult to stop them many more appearing. And that is why I cannot accept this this as a justifiable application and go against officers' recommendations. I think our officers are have done a good job here protecting our heritage, and I would move that we do accept officers' recommendations.
All right. Any other comments, Councillor Hutchinson?
I would second that proposal to go with officers' recommendations.
All right, thank you. Any amendments? No amendments. In that case, we go to the vote. All those in favour of supporting officers' recommendations? Okay. All those against? Abstentions? Thank you. In that case, it's carried to go with officers' recommendations. I'm sorry, Mrs. Taylor, but I think that's all we can do. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And